Kind of lucky. Got a really nice day today. I think today is the 15th of or the 16th of November, and man, it's just beautiful out here today. Not too often we get this good of weather this time of year. Okay, back to the bike. I said I bought this about a year and a half ago, and right now it's got almost 62,000 miles, 61,900 miles. The fellow I bought it from, which was the original owner, he replaced the motor at 30,000. Had a bottom end failure, so Kawasaki covered all that. So, but he did have to take the motor out of the frame, and he was without a bike for a couple months. Kind of took a while, but he eventually got that figured out. So I guess that's pretty good. Never had a KLR before. You know, I've read tests on them and it seemed like, hey, pretty good at a little venture bike for starting out. Usually reasonable money. I mean, I paid $1,900 for this, and plus I got a whole bunch of parts, all the stock parts that came to it. And speaking of mods, this thing has been highly modified. Kind of up front here, fork brace. That's a great mod to have on these. And from what I hear, it's night and day when you have one of these on, because the forks are a little bit spindly. But you get one of these fork braces and it does an amazing job. So that's kind of nice. Up front actually has some risers that he put on, along with some Renthal bars. You see some bark busters. And while I'm at it, yes, this has got heated grips and they work fantastic. If you're riding a cold day in the winter time, they're great. Clutch easy pull, so that's a nice thing to have. Extra lights up front. These are LEDs. Really nice feature to have on the bike. Got some crash bars here. KLR, that's just a necessity. This is a big heavy bike. Eventually you're going to go down. Steel skid plate. Yeah, protects the engine pretty good down there. Really nice to have. And while I'm right here, he put on different radiator hoses that apparently release heat a little bit better so the engine runs cooler. So that's a nice, real nice addition to have. Along with my aftermarket gas tank I have on here. Yeah, I think it's 5.8 gallons or 6 gallons. I mean, it holds a lot. If you fill that up, it's a heavy, heavy bike. And also on the crash bars, I've got some highway pegs. You know, if I'm cruising on the highway or something, it's really kind of nice to have. This bike also has a center stand. Another nice feature, if you happen to get a flat tire or something, it really aids in taking your tires off this bike. So that's something really kind of nice and essential to have. IMS shifter right here. I still have the stock pegs on here. I haven't quite, and they do get a little slippery when it's wet. I like them when it's dry. So that's something I'm going to look at replacing down the road. Probably this winter when I got a little bit of downtime, I'm going to replace them. Now let's move over to the other side. I'm trying to stay out of the sun a little bit here. He's got a different kit. He's got a carb kit in there, jet kit. So that really aided a lot. K&N air filter. Along with the carb kit, that was probably good for a couple more horsepower. The head pipe is different too. I'm not sure of the brand, but that probably helped the torque of the motor a little bit. So all those things are kind of nice on there. Suspension. This has got some heavy duty springs up front, and you can't hardly see the shock, but he's got a heavy duty shock in the back too, or a heavier spring. I'm not quite sure what he had done to it. This came with panners on there. This is the braces for the panners. I didn't like them for what I was doing. They got in the way. So I took one of the hard bags, one of the Pelican bags, and I mounted it to the back here. And for what I do, most of the time it works well. If I was going to go on a long trip, I could put them right back on. It doesn't take any time at all. But for now, this is what I got, and it seems to work pretty good. Let me see, I'm just going over my list to see what else. Plastic, I guess, is from an 07, which I think that's the Gen 2. So it's not aftermarket, so it's good quality plastic that he put on there. And you can tell, it's nice thick stuff. Doohickey mod, everybody knows about the doohickey on the KLR 650s. This one's got an aftermarket doohickey, it's all been done. So, peace of mind. Yeah, I've heard of people going a lot of miles with them, but I guess it's kind of nice to have it on there. It seemed like there was a tendency for them to go out occasionally. Little extender on the back rack, which is really kind of nice to have. When I got the bike, the brakes weren't the best, so I put in some new brake pads, and that seemed to help. The brake pads look like, I don't think they were the original, but the guy I got it from, he did do a lot of highway miles on this, so it's possible. Oh, another addition, carbon seat. So you can see on there, I think it was 450 bucks. If I was going to do it, if I was going to buy a seat, I'd probably get a Seat Concepts and put on there. I just think it's a little bit better. Things I've done, I put on some Shinko 244s, 50/50 tire, fairly inexpensive tire, and so far, I mean, I've got a couple thousand miles and they're doing pretty good. I put on a chain and sprockets just because I wasn't sure. I mean, through Rocky Mountain, they were inexpensive. Also see he's got some radiator guards here, so it'll make it kind of nice. Anyway, some of the dislikes in this bike. First thing I've noticed, man, this thing's a tank. It's heavy, but I gotta admit, I'm comparing it to dirt bikes. I'm comparing it to my KTM dirt bikes. Of course, it's a little bit heavy, and it's gonna feel like a tank. It's something you do get used to. I mean, it's like a street bike, dual sport, kind of all mixed up together. And I wasn't impressed with the motor at first. I still ain't impressed with the motor for a 650. You think it'd have more torque. I mean, you can get it to wheelie, but it takes a lot. But that said, it gets the job done. I mentioned the brakes. It's a heavy bike. It takes a lot to pull them down. They're not the best in the world. But, the bike's kind of wide. You notice that when you're riding it. This particular bike had a raising kit, a 1-inch kit put in there in the suspension that raised the seat up. So it's a tall bike. I'm 6'1½", and I'm not quite tippy toes. And sometimes it's easier just to mount it, put your left foot on there and just go over it like you're riding a horse. It's almost easier sometimes. But yeah, something you live with. Likes. Well, I think the KLRs are known for reliability. Proven to be reliable. The guy in September, he did have that motor failure, but that was just a fluke. And Kawasaki did cover it. And everybody seems to think these bikes will last $100,000. I complained about the motor, a dislike, but actually the motor is one of the best parts on this bike. It chugs and chugs. It's not overwhelming, but it gets the job done. On log roads, fire roads, this thing is awesome. It does a really good job. It's just a blast. Very predictable. Doesn't do anything particularly well, but doesn't do anything bad. So that's probably about the best thing you can say about any bike. Affordable. Like I said, I paid $1,800 for this. Yes, it's a used bike. Yes, it has a lot of miles. It's probably got $1,500 of mods and possibly more on it. So that made it kind of attractive, and I was looking for an adventure bike, dual sport bike. I've had XR 650s and XR 250s. I had a DR 350, and it's definitely a solid bike. A little bit heavy, reacts a little bit slow, but if you take it for what it is, it's really not a bad bike. But anyway, I didn't really have, like I said, I didn't have nothing to compare this to but a dirt bike, my dirt bikes. And it don't compare well to a KTM 350 or 300. But if you take it in context for what it is, it actually does pretty well. Hoping this next year to maybe take some more trips. I did mainly a lot of adventure riding on log roads, that type of thing this year. And I know a lot of guys take them on freeways. They brag about them cruising at 80, 90 miles an hour. I mean, things get buzzy. I got stock gearing on there. Things get buzzy past 70, 75. It'll do it. The wind just about blows you off on these things. So something else to keep in mind. Anyway, there it is, my 2006 KLR 650.